All right, how's everybody doing today? Good? I heard it good back there. How many kids are in here that normally aren't in here? Raise your hands. Let me see you guys. That's pretty good. Pretty good. I thought this place looked exponentially better than normal from up here. I don't know. So thank you for doing that. So it's good to see all you kids in here. And how many of you parents have a parent that's in middle school that's on the retreat right now? Raise your hand. Also, you're welcome. You're welcome for that. And we have, I think, 19. Is that right, Joy? Where she went? 18? She left. She's busy. She works all the time. Workaholic. You need to pray for her. All right, so anyway. But 18 kids. Isn't that cool? 18 middle school kids from Foundry that are at the middle school retreat over at Ochco, and we haven't heard anything, which I think is a good sign. So we're excited about that. And my oldest son actually went to be a camp counselor, which is a new thing for him. And so I'm excited to hear that story. And so we're just looking forward to that. So that's great. And it's just good to be here. So kids, now I'm gonna teach. Do you have my PowerPoint? Hey, there you are. And so kids, I'm gonna ask you a question here. How many of you boys? How many boys are in here? Let's see. How many of you guys love a good love story? Anybody? Hudson likes a love story. Hey, I like it, man. I like it. You're secure in who you are. That's good. All right, so that's what we're going to talk about today. Communion, which we're wrapping up that series today. Communion, to me, it's been a great series to go through personally. Just to kind of dive into what communion is about. Man, I thought we had a great time last week, just taking our time to come up here and receive the elements up here. That was special. And tonight we're going to have a great time. Tonight we're going to get together. And by the way, if you haven't RSVP'd, don't worry about it. We want you there, and we'll work something out. We'll make everybody take half portions if we have to start out. But we want you there. And from what I understand, the brisket is just phenomenal. 31 hours, I think it took to cook this thing. And so yeah, so that's going to be good. It's going to be great. We want you there. We're going to close out to this communion series by celebrating together. But the last thing I want us to think about in this aspect of communion is this. Communion, the contemplation of being loved and of loving. The contemplation of being loved and of loving. You know, I think we'll see that's really what communion is at the end of the day. At the end of the whole thing, it's our opportunity to refocus and think about how much we've been loved and think about loving each other. And so, again, how many love a good love story? How many raise your hands, adults and kids, you love a good love story? Anybody? That's pretty good. How many you care less about a love story? Anybody? You may be dismissed now. All right, so I'll tell you a love story. I'm going to talk about King Edward VIII. How do you know King Edward VIII? How do you know this story already? Again, adios. All right, so if you know it well, don't pay close attention, because I think I've got most of the historical facts, but I'm not sure. But this is a true story. This is about a real king named Edward VIII. All right, and he was king of England recently. I mean, compared to a lot, like we think of a lot of kings, he was king of England from January 20th, 1936 to December 11th, 1936. That's 327 days. That's the shortest reign of any king in over 400 years, any king of England. And so we're going to talk about that story, what happened to him. So I'll show you a picture of old King Edward. They're a pretty good looking guy, I give him that. And this is a picture of him in his official portrait as king over here. This is a picture of him as a soldier. And King Edward was a super charismatic guy. He had tons of personality. He was just king material. And when his father passed and the throne became his, it was a natural fit. It was a natural fit. I mean, he was everything that you'd want in a king. Charismatic, good looking, and just a prototype king. And he comes to power in January of 1936. Now, this is interesting. I think I've got a laser pointer on here. Ooh, I do. First time ever. First time using it. All right? You're welcome. All right, so kids, you're witnessing history. All right. So this, anybody know who this fella is? King George. King George. But that was Edward's brother. That was Edward's brother. This becomes the Queen Mother. I can't remember her name. There you go, Queen Mary. And anybody recognize this girl? It's Queen Elizabeth. She's the queen right now. Now here's the thing. Here's the thing. That when Edward steps down, he becomes king. How many of you remember the movie The King's Speech? That's that guy. Right there. So he was the opposite of what you would think of a charismatic king. He was shy, he had a speech impediment, everything else. But when King Edward leaves the throne, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, it starts a whole new line of succession. If King Edward would have stayed on the throne, she would have never been queen. Isn't that interesting how things work out, right? Hey kids, you're getting a history lesson. This is a double bonus for you today. How many kids like history? Yeah, all right, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. So that's sort of the family. So you got King Edward. This is his brother George, and his sister-in-law Mary, and what would be his niece Elizabeth. Now, so King Edward VIII is going along great, but there's a problem. He's great king, supposed to be king, all that. There's an issue, and the issue is her. Her name is Wallace Simpson. Wallace Simpson had captured Edward's heart. They met at a party, and they fell instantly in love. Anybody have that experience with your current spouse? Anybody? You just fell instantly in love. Right when you saw her, you knew it was true. That's how Joy was with me. It took me a while to come around, but after a little while of begging, I was like, sure, I'll go out with you. Why not? Nothing else to do for it. All right, so. But they fell instantly in love. It was one of those super magnetic connections, where it's just, they knew it. But here's the problem. A couple of problems. Well, probably three problems. One problem, she was an American. She was an American socialite. So she was a foreigner. She was a foreigner. But that didn't matter. Edward's like, hey, you know what? I'm in love. Here's the bigger problem. When you're the King of England, you know what else you're head of? The Church of England. The Church of England. It's known as the Anglican Church. And here, I think it's the Episcopalian Church. And they're the head of that. And the problem with old Wallace there, as much of a looker as she was, she'd been divorced twice. Not just once. She's been divorced twice. So it was not only she was a foreigner, but she was not pure. She was not ideal by any stretch of the imagination. But you know what? Edward's like, I'm in love with her. So I don't know what to do about it. I'm in love with her. And so this caused quite the controversy. This caused quite the controversy because as he was king, he wasn't married to her, but he was clearly with her. They were a couple. And the more it got, the more that he was becoming, he was already king, and as he was fitting into that, it became quite clear that the people at the palace, that the people that were in the upper levels of power in England did not want her around. Did not want her around at all. She was a foreigner. She was divorced twice. She wasn't worthy of being a part of what we've got going on. So Edward, you need to get rid of her and find you a queen suitable. And it caused enough controversy that this happened. She was the 1936, it used to be the Time Man of the Year, and she was the very first Time Person or Time Woman of the Year in 1936. That's how big a controversy it caused. Everybody in the whole world knew what was going on. Everybody was riveted to this story. What was King Edward going to do? What was King Edward going to do? I know what I would. I don't know what I would do. I really don't. Being king would be pretty cool. That's all I got to say. I don't know. I don't know. I'm not gonna pretend like I know the answer to that question. I assume I know what I would do. I assume I'd be like, sorry, King, Joy, you're it. I'm assuming that's what I would do. But have you seen that scepter? It's like pure gold, baby. I mean, they got all these crown jewels, all that power, just saying, hey, do this, do that. I mean, I don't know what I'd do. I don't know what I'd do. Now I know what I would do, because I've been married for 20 years. But if I was on the other side of it, it might be a hard conversation to have. You know? I'm just being honest with you. Joy would have left me like a heartbeat to be the queen. So just kidding. I think. I'm not sure. I'm glad we don't have to worry about it. At any rate, 1936, Time Woman. This is a huge controversy, and the whole world's looking at what he's going to do. What is this guy going to do? He's in love with this girl, but he's the king, and it's good to be the king. So here's what happens. He's into it about a year. Everybody keeps putting pressure on him. He doesn't know what to do, and then finally he decides, you know what? I'm in love with this woman. She means so much to me that I'm going to abdicate, or I'm going to step down from the kingship. And he says this in his speech. This is his abdication speech, which is where he stepped down, his resignation speech of being king. Can you imagine that? He stepped down from being the king to be with this foreign, impure woman that wasn't worthy of being queen. So instead of finding another, he was so in love with her, he said, I'm not going to be king. She's worth it. She's worth it. And he says this, a few hours ago I discharged my last duty as king and emperor. And now that I have been succeeded by my brother, the Duke of York, my first words must be to declare my allegiance to him. This I do with all my heart. Then he goes on and says, but you must believe me when I tell you that I have found it impossible to carry the heavy burden of responsibility and to discharge my duties as king as I would wish to do without the help and support of the woman I love. Wow. That's pretty romantic right there. And there's probably a lot of guys in here going, man, that's really tough. I don't know. But that's pretty awesome. That's pretty amazing. He gave up everything. He's the king of England. Palaces. Just a life of leisure. Well, he really didn't give up a life of leisure, but you can get into that later. But all of the stuff that comes with being king, that was all laid before him, his entire kingdom and all that power and all that stuff. He had a woman who no one thought was worthy, but he loved her and he had affection for her. And he said, you know what? Here's the kingdom. It's not even close to me. And hopefully all of us would say the same thing, right? It's not even close for me. He said, bye kingdom. I'm going after the woman that I love. And he married her a couple of months later in 1937, and not one person of the royal family attended the wedding. Not one. And she was not allowed the title of Your Royal Highness. She was not allowed to be called that. I mean, I don't know if she cared about it or not, but she wasn't allowed to be called that ever. He gave up the kingdom for his love. That's awesome, right? That's a good story. Here's another picture of Wallace Simpson. This is several years later. This is in 1972. So 35, 40 years later. This is Wallace Simpson staring out of the window of Buckingham Palace. This photo was captured of her shortly after Edward's death. And this is the first time she'd been invited to just hang out in the castle. Was after his death. And she was there looking around, and she was heard saying over and over and over again, as she looked at everything, and she saw all that Buckingham Palace had, and she saw all the regalia, and she saw all the beauty and all the earthly, worldly goods that were there, and all the worth of this kingdom. And she sat there in mourning and said, how could he give up so much for so little in return? And as she walked, she said that over and over again. How could he have given up so much for so little in return? And you know what? The truth is, with us, it's one thing to think about how much we've been loved by Jesus. Jesus loved us. We weren't clean. We were definitely foreigners. We were enemies, as a matter of fact. And Jesus loved us so much that he left his kingdom to come down and not only be with us, but to die for us. To give his life for us so that we could be with him because he loved us so much. And this really cool love story about this king who loved this girl so much that he was willing to abdicate his throne for her pales in comparison to what Jesus has done for us and how much he loves each and every one of us. And as we think about this, I don't know that we'll get the full glimpse of it. I mean, there's no way we can get our heads wrapped around it. But here's a promise that Jesus gave us, that we were going to be with him forever. And that we were going to see him in all his glory. We're going to be in the kingdom of God with him forever and ever and ever. And I'm guessing we won't truly know the extent of Jesus' love for us until we see the beauty of what he gave up to come and hang out with us. And to die for us. So that we can be his. As we think about communion, let's go to John, 1 John chapter 3, verses 11 through 16. And it says this: "For this is the message you heard from the beginning. We should love one another." We should love one another. "Do not be like Cain, who belonged to the evil one and murdered his brother. And why did he murder him? Because his own actions were evil and his brothers were righteous." It was jealousy. Don't be envious of each other. Don't be jealous of each other. Don't look at each other with disdain, but love each other. Regardless of where one of us are in social, a seeming social strata, or a financial one, or whatever it is, or we see one as being closer to Christ or not, or whatever, we love each other, regardless of where we're at, because we're all in this story together. Do not be surprised, my brothers and sisters, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed from death to life. Why? Because we love each other. That's the test. That's how we know that we've passed from death to life, that we've gone from darkness to light, that we've gone from enemies of Christ to Christ's family. How? That we love each other. Anyone who does not love remains in death. Anyone who hates a brother or sister is a murderer, and you know that no murderer has eternal life residing in it. Those are pretty hard words, but then he comes to this. This is how we know what love is. So John comes to this declarative statement in 1 John as he writes this in chapter 3, and he says this: hey, this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. That's the ultimate expression of love that we can ever see, hear, or understand. So much so that it's more than we could ever know. It's more than we could ever fully understand. One day we'll get a glimpse when we're with him and see just how much he gave up to come and hang out with us, to come and be with us, to come and die for us. But John said this is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. That's the ultimate expression of love. That's why we're here. That's what makes all this possible. I was just talking to somebody else down here that grew up in Huntington, West Virginia. Is that crazy? I mean, it's like flies to light. I mean, we West Virginians find each other. You know, it's crazy. It's crazy. We have there's Rachel Skull. I saw her out. I don't know if I don't see her. She graduated from the same high school I did. Is that crazy? Country. I mean, come on. And so, there's that. If it's not for Jesus, we don't end up in the same room here. It's not for Jesus loving us. Our paths are going every which direction. We're here together today. We get to celebrate communion tonight together, not because we came up with a great idea, not because we decided to have a brisket and just hang out and eat. It's because Jesus Christ died for us. Because he loved us. That's why we're here. And then it says this. And I'm going to close with this. It says this. And we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. And as I think about this story of communion, I think about this study of communion we've done for the last few weeks, it's so much deeper than what kind of service do we do it in. It's so much deeper than how should the elements be. It's so much deeper than that. It is the expression, it is our physical expression of Christ coming and dying on the cross for us, which is the ultimate expression of love. And it's a chance for us to do this. Communion puts us in the place to contemplate this truth. The truth that Jesus Christ laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. I think at the end of the day, when it's all boiled down, and we sit around and we partake of the elements, which we'll do one more time tonight, and we've done every week this month. As we sit down and celebrate tonight, we partake in this. Let's contemplate this. The great love that Jesus had for us, and that He gave up His life for us and died on the cross for me and for you. And the fact that He commands us to love each other in the same. That's what it's about. Communion puts us in the place to contemplate these truths. And so let's not come out the other side of this month. Let's not come out the other side of this study the same way. Let's come out the other side of this study with a greater understanding and a greater longing to know more about the love of Christ that would cause Him to come and die for us and make us a part of His family. And let's look more for ways that we can express that love that He's given to us to one another. And let's show the world that we have passed from death to life. Let's show the world that Jesus is real by how we love each other. Amen? That's communion. That's communion. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, I just ask You to help us. God, I just thank You so much for this opportunity. I thank You for what You've done in my heart. To just take a long, hard look at the beauty of You giving us a time to just sit back, to contemplate the death and the burial of You. Lord, the fact that You gave up Your body, your blood, so that we could be with You forever. That level of love. Thank You for setting this time aside for Your church, so that we can contemplate that. But help us not simply to look backwards at that, but Lord, help us to look for more ways to engage our culture with that love, to engage our brothers and sisters in You with that love, so that we can show the world the unusual and the beautiful grace and love that You've shown to us. So Lord, with all my heart, I say thank You for communion. Thank You for establishing that. Thank You for giving us a time to contemplate, to think, to commune together around the truth of Your cross, which is the greatest expression of love in all of time and in all of history and in the entire universe. So God, help us to think that through and to love each other better. In Jesus' name. All God's people said, Amen.